Hi, welcome to Rick Snyder's Washington on YouTube, where you get the premium and free longer story content about your favorite football team, among other things. And today I thought I'd tell a story about George Allen and June Rhee. Now, you've got to be a Washingtonian of a certain age, which is code for old, to remember this story. It was back in the 1970s. George Allen comes in 1971. Real motivational guy. For those of you who knew his son Bruce Allen, man, polar opposites, I think. George was a really good coach, and he, took this team to the playoffs regularly, got to one Super Bowl and lost. But George Allen really kicked it in. He came just a couple years after Vince Lombardi. A lot of the same, and George was very type A, very planned out everything, worked himself to death, gave this young intern a chance named Charlie Casserly. There's lots of stories about George Allen. The one about June Rhee I really liked was George liked to do motivational talks to the players, try and get them going. Like one time he talked about he would just fight Tom Landry, at midfield. Let's just go settle the game right here. I'll fight him. Which Landry was a war veteran and probably would have kicked George's butt, to be honest. I don't think I'd want to fight Tom Landry in his prime either. But one time he said, hey, I'm going to break these boards. And he worked with June Rhee, who was a big karate master here in Washington, had these TV commercials, about June Rhee's self-defense. And his little boy at the end of them would go, nobody bothers me either. And it was funny. They're still on YouTube. You can probably Google them and find them. Everybody knew who June Rhee was. USA 1000, fight for might, or might for whatever, might for right, I think it was. But it was funny. Everybody knows. So when George has this guy come in the locker room and he's teaching George how to break boards. And so George decides to call the players around. He's going to show them how to motivate things. And he goes to hit the boards. And Mark Mosley tells me the story. George hits those boards and damn near breaks his hand, and the board doesn't break. And he's got to hit those boards a few times before they finally broke. And, then all the players cheered George around and, made him a big deal on that. But it's just kind of funny that he would have June Rhee out there to do these kind of things. June Rhee was not a guy you messed with, but George had trouble with the board breaking. George was a very interesting guy, and I could tell a lot of stories about him, and probably will over the course of all this. He actually was he was always thinking about football so much that he got into a ton of car accidents. And finally, the ownership of the Redskins just hired him a driver. Think about that, and take him back and forth because it was cheaper than all the car accidents he had been into. That kind of thing. George supposedly, I never got to see this, and Bruce refused to even talk to me to confirm this years ago. But I was told that he had the house that they moved into here painted burgundy and gold. And the first time it rained, the burgundy all ran on the bricks and ruined everything. So I wished I could have seen that, but I've never seen a picture or anything of it. Supposedly it's one of those urban legend stories that is true. George Allen dealt with Richard Nixon. I'll do another show about the Richard Nixon play that was submitted that was a disaster, and everybody blamed everybody else for that one. Who knows the truth of that? But George Allen was just something special. I grew up here in Washington, so I saw him. And, Lombardi was the guy that turned the franchise around in 1 year and then passed away. They had an interim coach. And then George Allen came for the 70s and finally wore himself out here and went to the Rams, and then quickly was gone from there. Went out to Pepperdine, coached in colleges. And his last game they win, they doused him with Gatorade. And George gets really sick and ends up dying from it. So what a weird way to, I guess, fittingly for a coach, winning your last game with a Gatorade shower causing it. I guess that's probably a fitting way for George Allen to go. I think people, when we look back at George Allen here in Washington, Bruce aside, and what happened in his 10 years as a GM, George really helped set this team up for success, and then Gibbs came in and had great success. But Gibbs' success partly came, because Allen turned the mindsets around here. So, something to talk about. And, just another one of those stories. If you want to find the book, it's on Amazon. I don't really make any money off it anymore, but go ahead. You'll enjoy the stories that are in there. So, that's it. That's what you get on YouTube. That's what you don't get on Twitter or Facebook when you watch me there. It's more local daily news. but this is where old Ricky comes to tell his tales. Please subscribe. Need to get to 1,000 to make some advertising money off this. Can I make $1? You know, you would really help me do that. We're about 400 short right now. So tell your friends, tell your enemies, whatever. Come hit subscribe button. If you don't come back, that's fine. You did me a favor. It's like a tip. Appreciate it. I'm Rick Snyder for Rick Snyder's Warston. I'll see you again soon.